Kal Kadosh, Boker Or. I wanted to share with you an incredible idea on this week's parasha. The parasha begins by saying that Moshe Rabbeinu comes, Vayakel Moshe. He comes and he brings all of Bnei Israel together, and he tells them, Ele Adevarim. And then the topic ends 20 psukim later, and then it says that the entire assembly, everybody, right, left Moshe's presence. Vayetziu kol ha'davar Yisrael milifnei Moshe. They came out from the presence of Moshe. So basically, it's the beginning of the parasha until Rishon. This week, obviously, it's going to be more because remember it's a double parasha, so you don't finish by Rishon. It goes until the Shani or whatever, meaning that it's going to be because it's double, so you're going to have much longer. But usually, if it was only parasha Vayakel, so for example, next year is a leap year, so you'll probably have Vayakel by itself. So therefore, what you do is you stop right on the Rishon. So it starts 20 psukim later. Now it says Moshe Rabbeinu assembled them, and then it says that they left in front of his presence. Now, if this was a Gemara, the Gemara is going to ask Pshita, obviously, saying if you tell me that everybody's coming inside my room for a meeting, you don't have to tell me 20 minutes later that everybody left my room from a meeting, right? You just said it, that they came in. So what is the Torah telling us that they left Moshe? So Rav Eli Lopian, right? This is the Mashkiach of the Kfar Hasidim, that he came and he says an incredible Yesod, and he said like this: it's teaching us that when they walked away from Moshe Rabbeinu, it was evident that they were in the presence of Moshe Rabbeinu. Meaning, a person does not spend time in the presence of a great Jewish scholar, right, without having an incredible impact or an impression which is left on them. And this is certainly true, right, after the encounter. And many times the impression lasts a lifetime. Meaning, you don't know how many times it is that you see a big Gadol Ador and you're like, wow, this person, he's so humble. I remember going into Rosh Steinman. Rosh Steinman was already at the age of, when there was the wars, he used to not sleep he used to sleep on like on a rock or on like on a piece of wood. You understand? Like things like that they wouldn't sleep in a bed. Even when he slept in a bed, their beds were the Israeli mattresses. I don't know if anybody has ever seen the Israeli mattresses, right? We slept in yeshiva on those things. It was basically, if you wanted to even call it a mattress, it was a poor excuse of the word. They would just, they call it something. So it was a thin thing like this, right? Very small. It's not even a twin. It was like almost half of a twin, right? Of a twin size bed, right? It was very thin. So imagine that's what he used to sleep on. It wasn't even a regular mattress, right? It was mamash like nothing. That's what many times B'chorei Yeshivot, they used to put two together to make it at least a little bit, something. Here, nothing. The most simplest person in the world, and he was the happiest person alive. He was already, until, I don't remember if he was 100 at the time that I saw him. It was something, always had a smile. He always gave berachot. He was always, and you looked around his house, he had nothing. You would come and you would say, listen, this guy is one of the Gedolei Ador. You could give him a big mansion. He doesn't want it. He doesn't want anything. He's the happiest person alive. That's just the way that it is. So when the pasuk tells us that the entire congregation left Moshe Rabbeinu, it means that it made an impact, and therefore you could tell that they were with Moshe Rabbeinu for those 20 psukim. So Rav Elia explains, when you come and you see a drunk guy coming out of in the street, you wonder where was he. So he just came from a bar and he got drunk. So too he comes and he says, when you see somebody coming out, and you're able to see that he was in the presence of Moshe Rabbeinu, because the Kedusha was so powerful, it influenced the entire environment around them, that it made an effect. So the Panovich Rav explained with this an incredible interpretation in the Midrash in Parashat Toldot. Parashat Toldot, there was a Midrash from Yosef Meshita. Yosef Meshita, because there it says in the Pasuk, Vayarach Atreach Begadav, that Yitzchak Avinu came and he smelled the smell of the clothing. Right? And that's when obviously he was tricked by Yaakov and with Esav, the story of the Berachot. So what happened was, when it says, the Midrash says, don't say it that he smelled the smell of his clothing, but rather Reach Bogedav, the smell of the ones that rebel against you. Begadav are clothing, Bogedav are the ones that rebel against, Boged. So he comes and he says, what is that referring to? Yosef Meshita. Yosef Meshita was a despicable Jew. He was a traitor. And at the time of the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, the invaders were afraid to go into the Echal. So imagine, the Goyim were afraid to go into the Echal. What happened? They picked a Jew to first go in and to betray Hashem. Now why? Because they were afraid. Why did they? So they picked a low guy. His name was Yosef Meshita. They told him, go into the Bet HaMikdash And as a reward, whatever you take out, it's yours. He went in. What did he take out? The menorah. They went and they said, no. Sorry. That you can't take. He says, what are you talking about? You said I could take whatever. No, that's the only thing that you can't take. Everything else you could take. Menorah is ours. So, they didn't keep their promise. So he went and he said, I'm sorry, I'm not going back again. They said, what are you talking about? They offered him a bonus. Nothing. You go in a second time, we're gonna give you taxes. All the money of taxes. Imagine, IRS, everything. We're giving it to you. Right? Nothing. He says, not even for the next 3 years. He refused. He says, okay, let's go another time. We're gonna afflict you. We're gonna give you nothing. All of a sudden, the guy flipped. They didn't understand what happened. He didn't want to go in. He says, why am I going to come and anger my God a second time? They tortured him to death, and he refused to go back inside. The Panovich Rav asked, what happened to this guy? This guy, all his life, was a traitor. All his life, he was against the Jews, right? He was a Jew-hating Jew, right? So therefore, what's going on? What happened? You know what happened? He went in and he stole the menorah. Think about it. But he became a Bal Tshuva. Says, you know why? The fact that he was in the Bet HaMikdash for 2 minutes, he was never the same again. The fact that he was in the Bet HaMikdash for 2 minutes, that holiness changed him, that he couldn't go back in and steal anything again. He couldn't anger his creator a second time. So therefore, you see from here the exposure of 2 minutes of Kedusha, what it could do to a person. So he says, the Panovich Rav explained that it's some 2 minutes changes his life. So he says, if a person is exposed to radiation, chas v'shalom, he doesn't smell it, he doesn't feel it, but 2 minutes can change his entire body of radiation. He says, likewise, someone could be exposed to Kedusha for 2 minutes, and he becomes completely different. That is what the Pasuk is coming to teach us. The congregation left the presence of Moshe, but they were not the same anymore. They were not the same because they had been in the presence of Moshe Rabbeinu, and therefore, it's a completely different person. The same thing should happen to every single one of us. We go into a Bet Midrash, we go into a Bet Knesset, in Eretz Yisrael. It's supposed to change our lives. And that is why the environment and the friends in the community are so important. That is the power of Kiddusha. Kiddusha has to be that it's able to change for a person forever. That's why when you're going to check a community, don't check a community that they're just starters, or that you check strong community, something that they're very, very learned. A lot of people that they're Shomer Torah Mitzvot, that they want. Why? It's going to have an effect on you, right? The school, the same thing, right? The school, the community, the environment, their friends. Tell me who your friends are. I'm going to tell you who you are. That's what it is. That's the importance of what it is for us. B'ezrat Hashem, okay?